This is
In the Middle of It,
a podcast about
participation culture in Aotearoa.
Join us out in the field as we try to discover what it takes to grow participation culture in communities in Aotearoa.
really want to see the group as an instrument, the power of people being connected, of supporting each other, of problem solving.
Listen and discover the wisdom in this community and help create the conditions that enable that wisdom to create ideas that then come to life.
We know it makes a difference to your soul, your well-being. We also know that it makes local communities more resilient.
Welcome to episode 2 of In the Middle of It. So I'm here with my co-hosts,
Duncan Matthews.
Lucy Mary Mulholland.
Come along for the ride.
So today, Sissy, we thought we'd start out by diving into some of your experience working with the CLDP, or Community-Led Development Programs, that DIA has been running for many years now.
Yeah, I've been involved over many years running their annual or biannual hui that they have. So I've had this real opportunity to experience people who are just starting out and those who are coming to the end of their partnership. I've also worked hands-on with some projects, and it's probably fair to say often by the time I'm called in, it's because there's been some sort of breakdown. And I think that's the thing that first really interested me, is that it's the relationships that have to be strong to be able to make the decisions, to be able to withstand difference. And I did notice that where the relationships weren't strong, where it was built on perhaps the promise of money or a community plan or a series of ideas, that it was very easy for things to topple over.
Because how do these CLDP programs come about?
Look, I think it has evolved over time, and so I wouldn't want to say there's just one way. But definitely some of the key ingredients are these 5 community-led development principles that need to be enacted, and some sort of leadership group that is able to oversee a plan or a written understanding of wide community aspirations. And I've done work like that outside of the CLDP, arena. So I've often... And I think it's been good work, come into a community, worked with a group of people, found ways to really get into the nooks and crannies of different communities and come up with a vision, a set of ideas, some practical actions. But I don't think I think the process was always much more powerful than the outcome.
Interesting. So do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
I think I'm just saying that when people get together, when they talk, when they're plotting and planning, when they're adjusting what they want, they're building this cohesion with each other. And so it makes it easier for them to disagree, but also easier for them to want to get behind each other.
And then when it comes to delivering a plan, that's when some of the times you've been involved.
We've been involved.
We have started to notice some tension in those relationships, which might have been strong as they were working closely together, but when it becomes a plan that people are responsible for delivering to.
Well, perhaps through that series of relationships, there's actually something else that people would rather be doing. The energy's changed. I think the key is that if I go back to any of these communities 2 or 3 years later, it will not be the plan that anyone's talking about. It's the relationships, it's the experiences that they had with each other. I can catch up with people and say, what's happening with so-and-so? And they'll know about the people. The plan almost sometimes is out of date by the time it's produced, right?
Is there something about momentum that sometimes planning processes take too long? There's sometimes when it's just short planning, try something out, maybe replan, try something out. It kind of keeps the momentum. Is that sort of something you've noticed?
Yes, and I think money. So, you get to the end of phase 1, we have a plan. Now we're going to go and find some money to make this plan come to life. Like you say, the momentum between the two is a big gap. Or perhaps no one actually ever wanted a plan, but the funding's for a plan. So that becomes the catalyst rather than this is what we were imagining, this is what we got excited about. What happens if the money was just there to invest in relationships? Then what might happen? Because we could feel these networks of relationships and communities, but we couldn't see a way of kind of funding, going, let's just, don't worry about the plan, don't worry about the leadership group or signing an agreement, we're just going to fund you building relationships. We weren't sure how we could make that happen.
And is that the approach you've taken when you have worked with some of these CLDP groups, sort of focusing more on the group that is active and live and current and involved?
Yes, I think where I've gone into projects where things have broken down, I've really tried to work with the group moderating each other. The health of the system is what I'm interested in. So here we're a group of people. How are we going to talk to each other? How are we going to bring up our hurts? How are we going to repair this thing that's gone wrong? How are we going to work together in the future? So I would always focus in on what I would broadly call group work, getting a group of people together, working out what the barriers were, what the tensions were, what were the things that needed to be addressed, and then helping create channels for them to do that. And often there's a bit of a watershed moment and people can move forward, but not always. Sometimes, it's gone on too long. It's not possible.
But this group work approach is one of your specialties, isn't it, Sissy? Is that the...
I'd like it to be.
You'd like it to be?
I'd like it to be.
I think to a layperson like myself or Lucy Mary would call you a specialist in group work. Yeah.
Really want to see the group as an instrument, the power of people being connected, of supporting each other, of problem solving, the wisdom that sits in a group. Not so interested in an expert coming from outside and acting as if they've got all the answers.
Any work requires bringing together a group and navigating that group and drawing the wisdom out of the group rather than, an approach of, we'll go away and do some work and then bring you back a finished product.
We sort of talked about this a bit, right, of like letting conversations happen or groups come together and through that relationship, through those conversations, then suddenly ideas start to emerge. But they've come from genuine will, from that relational connection and talking and wrestling with things and exploring and but so often there's that magnet to like let ideas lead and then try and build the relationships to execute the ideas rather than the other way around.
I've always been really annoyed with when people go off and interview people or find out data and information and then don't include those people in the meaning making, as if we can make meaning of other people's experiences. And so that's when I first started doing, I think some people would feel quite cumbersome or expensive processes that really involved everyone as a co-researcher, right? So we come in and we hold a group, but we're all co-researchers in this. We're not jumping to solutions, we're uncovering together and suspending our judgment. It's that whole theory, John Heron's cooperative inquiry. A lot of people will say that they do believe the expertise is in the community, but to do that, you've really, you can say it. What does it mean to actually
do it
and to trust it and to allow people to be kind of shaping and influencing the things that matter to them?
I think there's some beauty as well, when you allow that process to happen. It's wisdom that is really place specific. It's people who have lived in this community for many years and they know which areas are potential kind of spaces where things could happen and which are real dead zones in the community, or they know things that have been tried in the past or haven't been tried yet. And they know, what people have got excitement for in the community. They've got all this wisdom that allows the ideas to be truly sourced from the context of each unique place.
This participation culture for me is around people not feeling dependent on someone else, whether it's the government, the council, that someone else should do things. This magnet pulls people back to a way of a mindsets around who should do what, around service delivery, helping people, where we're, I think, much more interested in the principle of solidarity, like we're all in this together, rather than, well, they should do this, or pull up your socks, or I'm waiting for the council to come and clear the gutters. How do we actually get people feeling, I think the word is agency in community development, this ability, this freedom to act and do what's important to them.
Which again, I think goes back to what you were saying before about those kind of traditional community consultation processes where communities are often sort of mined for their information or their wisdom, and then a plan is created, and then again there's that sort of community just sort of left there waiting. Oh, is someone going to do this? We've given our feedback, will something happen now? As opposed to, I think that potential of shifting the process to bringing more of that agency into community, where it's like, you're the co-researcher, a co-creator, a co-reflector, a co-adapter, and to be part of that ongoing process of creating with people in your community, I think is exciting.
I think a lot about when I worked in the caravan park in Ranui years ago now. We thought, it would be really great to have a hub in the caravan park that offered budgeting, WINS advocacy, alcohol support, and we wanted to test this idea with the people. And as we walked around talking to people, they're going, "No, we want a swimming pool and a singles night." And when we kind of came back as a group of this very lefty liberal people working, and they want social connection. They're not interested, like our ideas of what would be good for them are not their ideas of what they need. So if we're truly saying, well, we're going to consult with you, how do we work with them to bring about their ideas and trust that that will be what's needed for them to kind of have a more satisfactory experience? Like you say, it has to be the local people that are holding that and building the relationships. Like I said in one of our pilot places, you're tying a piece of string to yourself, you're tying that piece of string to someone else, they're tying it to someone else, they're tying it to someone else. And when you tug it, you're tugging all the people who are tied to the string, not just the one that you've tied the string to.
That's so true. And I think it brings up that other force of, you talk about these magnet forces that we just keep getting drawn back to. And I notice it in myself sometimes, and you see it all the time in kind of community development of being the rescuer, right? Like you said, I see a need, I can come in with a solution to help somebody. And that although that could, there's good meaning behind that, and there could be value in that, but ultimately there's, like you said, you're missing that opportunity to really listen and discover the wisdom in this community and help create the conditions that enable that wisdom to create ideas that then come to life, and that community is charting its own course rather than someone from the outside coming in with the perfect plan.
That's why we were so excited when we came across Hamish and participation culture. We knew that it came from the UK. We knew it needed to be adapted, but it did seem to have some real strength to it.
It seemed to address some of the shortcomings we'd seen in a number of the ways that community development has been done in Aotearoa over the last few decades.
We're not wanting to replace anything, but we are wanting to say there are some situations where we think this participation culture is really going to be a deal breaker.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things I saw was how it addressed the world getting more complicated. So a lot of the models we have are based on a time when, email was the most advanced form of communication now, and it doesn't really address the scrolling on TikTok. Whereas participation culture, the model that was used in London sort of specifically runs counter to some of the things we've seen, some of the less great social things we've seen happen because of social media and the likes of that.
What would you say is an example of that?
So bringing people out of their homes and coming together, cooking, eating, repairing, rather than interacting with people just through your phones or having friends through your phone, making friends on your phone, but actually just giving people a reason to go out and say hello to their neighbour again. You kind of have to find an excuse to go out and say hello to your neighbour these days. 30 years ago, you just go because otherwise you had no one to talk to. But these days, you can talk to anyone on your phone. And so you kind of need a reason to go and talk to someone. And this was, maybe it's giving people a reason to go and say hello.
Yeah, I guess you're talking about context, right? So, when I grew up, You'd go and knock on someone's door if you wanted to go and play with them, or, and then the most amazing thing that happened was call waiting. So you're on the phone, another call's coming through. So it's not that what's happening now is bad.
That's right.
It's that we're just in a place where we can feel more connected and we can, have social interactions through technology. And we want this to be an and we want there to be times where you can meet people, meet your neighbours, do things together, because we know it makes a difference to your soul, right? Your well-being.
We know it makes a difference to your soul, your well-being. We also know that it makes local communities more resilient when there is a need to respond, or for the many people who aren't on social media. And there's lots of people who may not have the technology, have the access to be able to join in online.
And I think for me, if I was just going to talk in a really big picture way, if I want people to vote in general elections, then really they have to have what they're doing taken seriously. So you've got to have had an experience of participating and it making a difference.
Yes.
Because it's too easy to say, it makes no difference whether I vote or not.
You go and submit on the council plan and it goes into their 30-year plan. You're like, cool, my thing might be done in 30 years' time. That's not particularly.
Yeah, and so you take it down to its smallest idea of participation, and that is knowing that when you're doing something, it's having an effect with someone. You're building a relationship. There's some sort of connection there, and you're wanting that to expand out to knowing that if you vote, it will make a difference.
Well, that's what you and I have observed, Sissy. What about you, Lucy Mary?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the difference between communities of identity and communities of place. That, with technology, we've all been able to really build these bonds between other people that have shared interests as us. We can find a Facebook group to join or connect with people across the globe that are interested in the same things. But there's something about actually having a sense of a community of place where we're looking after each other in our local communities, and therefore together we're able to also look after our place together as well. That sense of being able to not rely on others to take care of us, but actually start to take ownership of care for our place.
Yeah, I guess for me, when I lived in Paparoa, became that big difference around the critical mass. Like how many queer people live in Paparoa, like actually.
Did you get beyond one hand?
Well, even if I did, even if there was 15 or 16 people, you still need to mix with more than 15 or 16 people in your life. So I found myself forming genuine relationships and friendships with people that perhaps I wouldn't have if I'd still been living in Auckland, because I wouldn't need to, because I would have had a bigger pool of people that I could have mixed with. And I guess that to me was one of the most special things about living in Paparoa, is this real strong feeling of community. I live in a street. I've lived there for nearly 2.5 years. I don't really know my neighbours. I've only ever been out and involved when there's been a crisis, when a young boy went missing, and we all did rally around. But it shouldn't be like that. I know that. But it's like, what's the first step? And I think one of you said you were saying we need an excuse to do something, So I guess we're trying to find a way that supports people to feel like they can be themselves and accepted in their neighbourhoods.
And have a role to play as well. Hey, I liked what you were saying the other day about, sometimes hearing about, say, like a cooking activity that might be happening and someone said, I can bring lemons along to that. So just people starting to see little small roles that they can play based on what they've got in their own backyard or in their own back pocket. That sort of feeling of participating and finding a role in just a small, humble way, but a meaningful way.
How did Hamish get a hold of this? Do you know?
Well, actually, I had a little chat with him not so long ago, him and Maree Bevan, who's been working on strengthening streets in Manurewa. And do you want to listen in?
Yeah. Why don't we say hello?
Oh, well, hello to you both. Who have I got in front of me here?
I'm Maree. I'm doing a project in Manurewa and doing some street cafes, just getting people connected. But I'm also doing a little bit of work regionally to find out what else is out there.
And Hamish?
Hi, I'm Hamish. I'm an innovation coach at Auckland Council. All of my work centres around, finding out about who's growing participation culture in Auckland and hopefully supporting them, growing relationships with them, and building a community that supports each other.
And it was actually you, Hamish, that introduced participation culture or participatory cities model to me. How did you come across it?
I was doing co-design training with a whole bunch of librarians and working in the library system in Auckland, and kind of noticing how we were doing co-design with communities, but then we were still holding on to delivery of delivering whatever it was we'd designed. And I was always wondering, what if people got more and more used to this co-design stuff, and then they could actually, start doing the things that they were designing with us. And then Participatory City, I was just a heavy Twitter user at the time, and it just popped up on Twitter, and just jumped into the documentation and started reading, and I was like, yeah, I think this is describing that intuition that I had. This is like a system that could achieve that thing.
What were the 3 or 4 things that really stood out as being different to how ComDev community development's been done?
I think it's just like having an open space, high visibility in the community, where there's people that work in that space, and they're friendly and they're open. Their whole job is to invite people in and ask them about, what do you care about in this community? What would you like for this community? Do you have any little ideas? And I don't see those spaces existing at the moment. And I sort of just feel the power and the potential of spaces like that.
And Maree, you probably were one of the early community-led development kind of people, the 5 principles around community-led development. You did a whole lot of work, very well-known, award-winning work in Randwick Park. And yet here you are, very attracted to this model. Do you notice differences or similarities? What is it that's really turned you on to it?
I think at the base of participation culture is the sense of belonging to something bigger, and being involved in something where actually it's not just someone you meet at an event, but actually you are the street. You're what makes your community buzz. And so trying to get more and more people interested in being part of it, not because they have these special things, but just because that's who they are, and they can be who they are. They can celebrate their differences, but they can also come together and just have this commonality of living on a street and needing to do their rubbish, or needing to get rid of their e-waste, or whatever it is. They've all got this common thing, and in a way it's so simple, but yet so good for the community.
And us 3 have been talking about this idea of very big events rather than speed and variety, or small and often, which I think is a really underpinning principle of participation culture. Hamish, what have you noticed about the juxtaposition between big events and variety, or small and often?
Well, it's interesting in the project that Maree and I are working on together. We've been sort of talking about how small could you go. There's one of the little projects from Participatory City is the Neighbourly project, and that's literally just like, maybe I buddy up with one other person on the street, and I see if they need help, and they see if I need help. And that's the smallest participation project I've been able to find. But imagine if, in a street of 100 people, then you had 20 peers, then you've got 40 people in that street starting to ping off each other in all sorts of different ways. And the thing about that is it just makes it so much more doable for ordinary people that have jobs and kids and various commitments, to be able to actually also, on top of all of that, do something together.
Maree, do you want to tell us about the bouncy castle effect? What is it that attracts people to large events as opposed to what the smallest participation that Hamish is talking about?
Sort of more, you can come to an event as anonymous, and you can be just totally anonymous and come in, participate in I am here, and then walk away and maybe not have talked to anybody. Whereas I think the participatory stuff is more actually I'm coming and I'm connecting and I'm being part of whatever is happening. And actually, I might have some ideas for what might happen. You know, there might be some little things in your life that you can share that you don't think are much, but actually in the big scheme of things, make some cool things happen.
Is there anything that either of you would like to share, just as you're imagining people listening and just trying to get hold of participation culture?
For me, it's just, we always think, oh, that would be a good idea. And we don't actually lean into it. We go, yeah, one day I'll do it. For me, it's about, you know, today could be one day and just get in there and offer something small, whatever the little thing is, just go do it and don't worry about what will happen, because something cool will happen out of it.
I think for me, I've been thinking about inclusive co-creation, and there's not many things in our society right now that can bring that full diversity of people together. But in our cities, especially where like 30% of Aucklanders weren't born in Auckland, it's so diverse, and we need ways to really connect all those people together. And that's, you need to be intentional about that. So the inclusive part, and the other part is co-creation. Is like, you know, we had kids planning out a garden in the community centre. How do we open up that space for everyone to be able to get involved? From I can peel an onion today to I've got some big ideas that I want to think with you about. So those two kinds of dimensions of that and that, if we can open up both of those spaces, there's so much more benefit. And I think you know, in this time, we really need a lot more of that benefit to come through to help us with all the gnarly challenges that are coming up.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you both very much. I'm sure you'll appear again on our podcast later on.
Thanks, Hamish and Maree, for taking some time to talk with Sissy. What did you two think of what they were saying?
Yeah, I really love this kind of bouncy castle idea, and I've heard you refer to it now, this kind of this concept of, you know, if we're getting to the stage where we think we need to hire a bouncy castle, maybe we've gone too big. I just love that. I think it just helps really bring things down to a scale of that more kind of those intimate connections. It's quick and easy to organise, doesn't take a lot of resource. It's something that you don't need a lot of skill to do. You know, it's just something small that you can get off the ground and try out, and maybe it'll grow bigger, but maybe not. Maybe it just stays as a little small thing.
Hamish's point of the smallest unit of participation is one person to one person. Yeah, I really liked that.
I mean, they're great, these two together, because, you know, Hamish has a lot of theory and Maree's just like out there, has been doing this for years. And so when she says, like, if, you know, like, don't delay, do it today. Yeah. You know, I thought, well, that's me all over. And I think she's right. I think we've just got to do small things and not wait for it to be perfect. Thanks for tuning in.
Episode 2, down.
In episode 3, we're going to be really exploring the mantra that we've come up with, which is relationships before ideas. So what was it that led us to be saying this over and over again?
See you next time.
See ya.
Thanks goes to 104.6 Planet FM Community Access Radio Auckland for their excellent recording studio and guidance in producing this podcast. The music is Pistoriosis by Shane Ivers of soundmanmusic.com. Mal Joanneson for bringing together draft episodes, Mish Maskell for their audio engineering expertise, and thanks to our grantees this episode, Hamish Lindop, an innovation coach at Auckland Council, and Maree Bevan, strength coach and community facilitator.